Chapter 16, Chapter 8, Harry Potter versus Love, PT 3. I tripped on my way outside of the pensive, landing in a crumpled heap on the floor. I was viciously pleased when Dumbledore did the same, even if it was on me. "Quite all right, my boy," Dumbledore asked, standing and holding out a withered hand. I grabbed the edge of his desk to hold myself up. "Fine. I was simply examining the floor for defects and found it woefully inadequate." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as I slumped into a chair, checking my robes for dirt. I found myself dizzy in ways unexplained by magical travel. We'd gone back to a particular class during my first time at Hogwarts, but that wasn't how I remembered that conversation at all. Which led to the question, was my memory faulty? Had someone obliviated me, or oblivated Slughorn? I'm pretty sure I would recall if I had done that, would I? Also, what was that white fog? Potions, fumes. I said, "Sir, I know the dungeons have always had ventilation problems, but was it really that bad back then?" Dumbledore said, "That wasn't normal smoke, I'm afraid. It's proof of memory tampering." "Who did it?" I asked. "Voldemort, a Death Eater, you, Professor. He did it to himself, out of shame," Dumbledore said. "Whatever happened in that conversation has laid very heavily on Horace's conscience, very heavily indeed. It may be the very information we require to destroy Lord Voldemort." I nodded. "I need you to get that memory for me, Harry," Dumbledore said gravely. It's important to remember that Dumbledore only calls people to his office when he wants to manipulate them into doing something for him, or to manipulate them into learning some sort of moral lesson. Sometimes both. It had been nearly a day since we first attempted to flew into Hogwarts. Lucius had successfully made it through, but the green fire merely fizzled when Sirius tried to follow him. My right-hand man's robe still occasionally released puffs of smoke as we anxiously waited by the fireplace. "What do you bet he got captured and gave us all up?" Sirius said. "Shut up, Black," Rodolphus Lestrange growled at him. "Oh, come on. This is Lucy we're talking about. I bet he told them everything the moment they pointed a wand at him." It seemed that, once again, Sirius Black had said what we were all thinking. I sighed heavily. "Well, Rookwood and Hagrid are watching the front door, so we're prepared if Dumbledore tries to break in. I presume the wards haven't alerted you of anything." Sirius grinned, no doubt thrilled to present me with good news. "Nope. I just don't understand how this happened. The plan was foolproof." I said. "I bet Bellatrix warned them," Sirius said. Rodolphus sneered at him. "She's been dead longer than we've been planning this." "Hey, she knew Trelawney," Sirius said. "Unless you're doubting our prophetess." "No, of course not," he muttered. "Earlier, I had ventured to the third floor, where the air is thick with exotic perfumes and ancient magic. There, I had found Trelawney hunched over a table. Her nose was half flattened against her crystal ball, her eyes squeezed shut to better see with her third eye. While she had no clear visions of Lucius's whereabouts or his likely betrayal, she insisted that we remain at Grimmauld Place. It was, she told me, our only hope. I was torn from my musings as the fireplace roared to life. A robed figure stepped calmly from the green flames. "Good evening, my lord, my fellow Death Eaters, Mutt," Severus said, nodding to each of us in turn, but reserving a sneer for Sirius. "What in Merlin's name happened?" I snapped. Apparently, an uninvited guest fluing into the Slytherin common room sends the entire castle into lockdown, Severus said. "We were stuck there for hours." I frowned. "Has Lucius been captured then?" "No, my lord. When Dumbledore arrived to interrogate him, Lucius claimed that he was doing a surprise inspection for the Board of Governors. There was some suspicion when it turned out that the board had not been aware of this, but he reminded us all that he did say it was a surprise," Severus drawled. "That's Lucius. He's always been good at slithering out of trouble," Sirius said. "Indeed. Now, why is Lucius not reporting his failure to me personally?" I stroked my wand, causing the entire group to shudder, save Sirius. "There is a reason he's my right-hand man, after all," Severus said. "He was invited to dinner, and Dumbledore expects him to perform a slightly less surprising inspection of the school before he leaves." "How unfortunate," I muttered. "In happier news," Severus said, "Potter nearly got himself killed doing some sort of dark ritual. It had been 57 years since I'd visited the hospital wing, but it hadn't changed much. The sickly smell of potions filled the air, mingling with the citrus scent left by years of heavy cleaning charms. The bed was slightly too hard, to subtly discourage students from lingering, and even through the bandages, I could still see its painfully white walls. I heard Hermione lean towards me from her perch in the visitor's chair. "What have you learned today? There's a reason wizards wear glasses. Eyes are complicated," I said. She snorted. "True, what else? Don't just read the summary of a ritual in the book. There might be warnings or better instructions later on," I said. "What else?" I frowned. "I can't think of anything else. I'm pretty sure those are the only things I learned from this experience." "How about don't perform an untested ritual in the middle of a school-wide lockdown? Honestly, Harry, what were you thinking?" I shrugged. "I didn't want to be disturbed. It's not like I was invisible this time." "Madame Pomfrey couldn't get to you for hours," Hermione said. "You could have died." "Probably not died," I said. "Lost my eyes, maybe, but then I could just get better ones, like Moody's." "You are not getting fake magical eyes." I chuckled. "Well, obviously not now." The ritual didn't go that badly. Hermione was silent for a time, probably reading. She does that a lot. "Harry, what was wrong with your old eyes?" "Well, I did need glasses and I wanted night vision." "Why do you need night vision? You don't even do anything at night." "Of course not. Without night vision, that would be stupid," I said. I heard a soft smacking sound, likely Hermione's palm striking her forehead. I added, "Also, I thought the whole slitted pupil thing would look cool." "You thought?" Hermione took a long, deep breath. "It doesn't, Harry. It's creepy." "Really? I thought you liked cats," I said. A soft thump told me that she had leaned backwards into her chair away from my bed. "This is ridiculous. It's not like your normal eyes aren't weird enough. I've told you, red is a perfectly normal color for wizards. Do you really expect me to believe that? No one else has red irises, Harry. You don't know everyone. There's a fourth-year Slytherin girl. Ask Ginevra. She knows." She said, "Even Luna thinks they're odd. She doesn't think that about anything." "It's a very rare trait like Parseltongue," I said. "It only appears in particularly pure lines. Your mother was a muggle-born," Hermione said. I could sense her eyes rolling. "You take that back," I cried, lurching forward to point my wand in her general direction. Hermione said, "Oh, come on. You've been complaining about your muggle aunt for years." "Squibs happen. Sometimes they squibble back. For instance, the Evans family are descendants of Merlin's third daughter, who was disowned for marrying a half-blood." Hermione groaned. "If I'm not a descendant of Merlin," I continued, proudly tapping my chest with my wand, "then how did I kill Voldemort as a baby?" After a long pause, Hermione asked, "Harry, are you in a lot of pain or something?" "There is some stinging while the optic nerve tries to reconnect," I said. "Good," she said. "Usually your lies are better than this. No one is gullible enough to believe this tripe." I smirked. "You don't talk to Slytherins much, do you?" "I hardly think the House of the Cunning would." I shook my head. "You're looking at this like a muggle-born. The Slytherins think that blood matters and know that I'm amazing at magic. So I've given them two choices. They can either believe my ridiculous story, or they can accept that a half-blood is just innately better at them in terms of everything, fundamentally changing their worldview." "Which choice do you think they pick every time?" That actually makes a scary amount of sense. "But seriously, what is wrong with your eyes?" She was never letting this go. I exclaimed, "Fine. Dumbledore thinks that it's because my mother loved me a lot. I'm pretty sure that's his way of saying that she dabbled in blood magic." The stack of cards and candies left by my hospital bed didn't surprise me. I was the most powerful student at Hogwarts, a genius, and the boy who lived. Further, I would likely achieve professorship soon enough to teach the younger years. Attempts to curry favor were to be expected, but one of the gifts lay unsigned, a box of chocolates wrapped in a bow. Lounging on my bed in the Gryffindor dormitory, I plucked a chocolate from the box and examined it. It was homemade, certainly, and it's easy enough to pour some potion in the mixing bowl. A quick sniff revealed a cloying scent, though that could be the result of too much sugar, and another round of detection spells revealed the same result as before. It had been tampered with. I should have thrown it out days ago, but curiosity stayed my hand. Was it a love potion, a prank item from the Weasley twins, or another assassination attempt? The poison-detecting spells only told me that something was there, but that gave no insight into who was attacking me. Until I knew that, I couldn't retaliate. I was tempted to take a bite of the chocolate just to find out. Thankfully, I have people for that. "Ron, taste these for poison." The redhead jumped a bit in surprise, whipping his head towards me with a startled, "What?" "Just kidding," I assured him. He frowned. Ah, mate, you're doing that thing where you say you're kidding, but then you get this smug look on your face that makes me pretty sure you aren't. I glared at him. Excuse me for trying to be nice. All I wanted to do was offer you chocolate, but then you doubted me. Ron's eyes glazed over at the mention of chocolate. His mind is incapable of keeping track of two things at once, and food will always be his priority. With a triumphant smirk, I continued, "Fortunately for you, I am a kind and generous master. Would you like some chocolate?" In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have let him eat the entire box. "Well, Ron's managed to overdose on love potion," I declared, descending the boys' staircase. Hermione's eyes widened, and she scrambled towards her bag in search of her potions textbook. "Will he be all right?" I slumped into the nearest chair. "He'll be fine. We'll be miserable." Hermione flipped open her book, asking, "Do you know what kind of potion?" Hard to tell. It was fairly fast-acting. Definitely not a Mortentia. Wrong scent, I said. We lucked out, really. At least he can't embarrass himself this way. Hermione glanced up from her book. "What do you mean?" "Between the ridiculous amount of potions in his system and all the chocolate he ate, he can't stand. Of course, I tied him down to be sure. We should probably induce vomiting soon if he hasn't already." What?" Hermione's voice squeaked. "Ha, I'd never taken her for the squeamish type." "Harry, we should probably take him to the hospital wing." I shook my head. "Can't run to the hospital wing every time something happens. He's there enough because of his lycanthropy." "Ron is not a werewolf," Hermione said, studying a page on Bezoars. "He'll never accept himself if you keep making excuses for him." "We can ask Slughorn." I shook my head. "He'll demand payment. Trust me, you don't want to owe him." She scowled at me. "We can buy an antidote then." I stared at her in horror. "Ron can't afford that. We're the ones who'll be paying," she said. I felt the familiar sting of betrayal. I finally discover my family fortune, and the Weasleys are already trying to steal it. I always knew this would happen, but I didn't expect it so soon. "Harry, we can't just let him sit up there in love with some love potion brewing witch." "Yes, we can." Hermione gaped at me in a very Weasley fashion. I sighed. "Hermione, look, we can't just bail Ron out every time he eats something he shouldn't. This is the only way he'll build up an immunity." "I'm fairly certain there's no such thing as an immunity to love potions," Hermione said. "Of course there is," I said. "You just tie yourself up and throw up every time it happens. Eventually, you become nauseous the second you feel the effects of a love potion." Hermione's lips pursed, and her eyes grew distant as if solving a complex arithmancy equation. "So anytime you feel love, then?" I shrugged. "I guess. Isn't it different when a potion causes it?" "Not sure," Hermione said, appearing deeply concerned at her lack of knowledge. Meanwhile, Ron's wailing had apparently overpowered my silencing charm. "Rommel de Vane!" he cried. "It could have been worse, I suppose. At least he wasn't in love with his sister. We'll have to watch him in shifts to make sure he doesn't accidentally kill himself. There's also a key period about 6 hours in when he's both obsessed enough to attempt escape and lucid enough to succeed. We should probably double up on that shift." Hermione was silent for a few moments, no doubt memorizing my instructions, before sighing and heading towards the boys' dormitory. Over her shoulder, she said, "Right, I'm taking him to the hospital wing." I stood upon my bed, smiling at the 3 students gathered below me. "Welcome to this emergency meeting of the Junior Order of the Phoenix. Not many of you could make it, so let's keep this short. Bellatrix is definitely dead, right?" "Yup," Ginevra chirped. Our spies were really upset about it. "No surprise there," Neville said. "After all, Rodolphus and Bellatrix were so in love, so very in love. At least their child lives on as a symbol of what's been lost," Luna said happily. I blinked. "Wait, they had a kid. Why was I not informed of this?" "It's a secret. The people in on it probably wanted to spare your feelings," she said. "You have Bellatrix's eyes, you know." "Luna, I am not the love-child of Bellatrix and Rodolphus Lestrange," I said slowly. "I'm pretty sure we would have noticed that before, wouldn't we have?" "Definitely," Ginevra said. Neville said, "Don't you have something to say about this situation and how odd it is?" I suddenly remembered the purpose of today's meeting and returned to our script. "Oh, yes, it's very strange that Voldemort hasn't caught our other spies yet," Ginevra said, "especially since they're our old spy's husband and brother-in-law. Does he really think they hadn't noticed that she'd switched sides?" "Well, Dumbledore always said that Voldemort doesn't understand basic human relationships," I mused. "Also, he's an idiot." At that moment, I slammed my head against the bedpost as hard as I could. Well, it wasn't me, exactly. It was Voldemort. I could feel the faint echoes of his fury as he retreated from my head. "Have done well," I said, rubbing at my forehead. "I am mildly grateful to you all for gathering on such short notice." "Any time," Neville said, grinning. I feared that his bloodthirstiness would soon rival Hermione's. Luna giggled. "I was just following the Raxperts." "I'll do anything for you," Ginevra said. Bellatrix was dead, but it seemed that her legacy lived on. "We probably shouldn't tell Hermione about this," I said. "She'll only get upset, and she's already busy planning vengeance for Ron." Dumbledore stood as I entered his office, his sleeve swooshing down to cover his blackened hand. Shrugging the invisibility cloak off of my shoulders, I held up a silvery vial. Dumbledore said, "I didn't expect you so soon, my boy. Surely Horace didn't part with his memories easily." Dumbledore was right. The manipulation required to convince Slughorn would take far too much time and effort to be worth the trouble, so I decided to use my memory of the conversation. "I am his favorite student," I said. "Although you probably shouldn't mention this to him. I had to obliviate him of the incident." Dumbledore sighed, clearly disappointed that I was operating independently of his orders. Was that truly necessary? "It was for his own protection," I said airily, wandering over to the pensieve and uncorking the vial. We leaned forward, tumbling deep into the basin before thudding onto the floor of the potions classroom. Slughorn was busy telling me that I would make a great minister of magic, still true. The man paused thoughtfully when I mentioned the word Horcrux. "That's very dark stuff, Tom, very dark. That's why I asked you about it," my younger self said. I meant to imply that he was a knowledgeable and influential pureblood. Depending on the definition he was using, however, he might have translated it to mean something along the lines of, "I think you enjoy torturing small animals in your spare time." That made no sense in context, so I presume he understood. If he didn't, he probably would have refuted the statement. A Horcrux is the word used for an object in which a person has concealed part of their soul, Slughorn prattled on. My younger self frowned. "I don't quite understand how that works, though, sir." "Well, you split your soul, you see." "No, I understand the mechanics. I meant to say, what is a soul?" Dumbledore appeared deeply troubled, and Slughorn laughed weakly. "Surely you know what a soul is, Tom." Irritation colored Tom Riddle's tone. "I understand the concept, sir, but this isn't some vague idea of your mind or emotions or anything like that. It's a physical object. You can cut it." "It's more of a tear," Slughorn said. He nodded. "Tear it, then. So does it go perfectly in half every time, or does just a sliver come off? How big is the soul? Let's say you make, I don't know, 10 Horcruxes." "10," Slughorn exclaimed. Tom continued. "At what point would you run out of soul? What if more of your soul is in the objects than in you? Can you walk around with nearly no soul? Does that have negative consequences?" I'd actually learned the answer to that last one. The Horcrux making process isn't harmful at all. In fact, it hurt less every time, so it probably makes you better. Slughorn chortled. "The only people who make Horcruxes are insane Dark Lords. No one's researched this, Tom." My younger self softly said, "What a pity." Dumbledore and I fell upwards through the ceiling and back into his office. He turned to me asking, "Do you understand what you must do?" "I need to make Horcruxes of my own," I said firmly. Dumbledore frowned, reaching over to stroke Fox. "Ah, no, I'm afraid not." I said, "Are you sure? Slughorn really sold me on it." "Quite sure, my boy." "You see, Voldemort's Horcruxes are what's kept him alive all these years." Dumbledore scowled. "He may have as many as 10. "No, he doesn't," I said. After a moment, I rephrased. "I mean, no, I don't believe it." "As much as I wish to think the same, Voldemort has always been a twisted man," Dumbledore said. "If you'll excuse me, I have much to think on, and if you hurry, you might be on time for defense against the dark arts." I strolled towards the door, looking forward to a peaceful hour in the Gryffindor common room. Lucius bowed to me before entering the sitting room. He nodded coolly to Severus and Sirius as well, then said, "I have a new plan, my lord." Sirius grinned. "Does this one suck too?" "My plans do not suck," Lucius hissed, shaking his silver fist at the man. "To be fair, that fluing idea was atrocious," I said. Lucius looked as if he had just sucked on a lemon. He never was any good with constructive criticism. "I assure you this one is better." "Did you check it with Trelawney?" Sirius asked. "Not yet," Lucius said. Well, what are you waiting for, unless you want to waste our Lord's time with a plan that's doomed to failure? Lucius stormed away, glaring at anyone who dared to look at him. Severus turned to Sirius, drawling, "You haven't changed in the slightest, Black. Still the same impudent, attention-seeking, bullying." Severus trailed off as Sirius bowed repeatedly to an imaginary audience. A few minutes later he straightened, grinning. "Yup, that's me, Sirius Black at your service." "I hate you," Severus said. Sirius threw an arm around his shoulder, ruffling the other man's hair. Severus's wand snapped into his hand. "Now may I explain my plan?" Lucius asked from the doorway. Sirius let go of Snape, playfully shoving him forward. "I dunno. That seemed awfully fast." "I bet you didn't talk to Trelawney at all. What do you think, Snape?" "One of these days I will kill you in your sleep," Severus said. "So you agree with me then," Sirius said. Lucius said, "I moved quickly because I didn't have to explain anything to her. She already knew and approved. Unless you're doubting our seer, Black." Sirius put up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "No, never. That woman's a genius." "My lord," Lucius implored, turning towards me. I really did want the man to redeem himself after his earlier failures. He was such a good minion. With a thin, lipless smile, I said, "Go ahead, Lucius." "I was speaking with the Board of Governors. It seems there's been a sudden drop in academic performance. Several parents have expressed concern. Therefore, I suggested that we choose a day to allow parents into the school. That way, they can see their children and discuss their issues with his or her head of house." "I fail to see how this is relevant to our plans to kidnap Harry Potter," Severus said. "I find it completely obvious," I announced. "Continue, Lucius, for Severus's sake." Lucius smiled weakly. "Of course, my lord. Many of your Death Eaters have children in Hogwarts. It would be perfectly reasonable for them to visit." "That's brilliant," I declared. "We can even send in Sirius Black." "Ah, how's that work?" Sirius asked. "You are Harry Potter's godfather, or was I misinformed of this?" I asked, sending a warning glare in Lucius's direction. "Well, yeah, but I'm pretty sure somebody else is taking care of him now." "You would think that, but you would be wrong," Severus drawled. Sirius said, "Oh, come on, they must have given him to Remus." Severus said, "He's a werewolf." Alice Longbottom was his godmother, tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange. "Right. She always did like that sort of thing," Sirius muttered. "What about the rest of the Potters?" "They disappeared," Severus said. "It was very mysterious. Probably my fault," I admitted. Sirius set his mouth in a firm line. "Dumbledore pawned the boy off on Muggles." Sirius wrinkled his nose. "Oh, he's one of those wizards who were the Muggles. Lily's sister and her family," Severus said. "That bint," Sirius barked. "He'd have been better off with you." Severus raised an eyebrow. "I am a Death Eater." "And a werewolf," Lucius added. "I think we've all heard the rumors." "Clearly, Sirius has the best claim to Potter," I said. "Therefore, it wouldn't be strange at all for him to go in with the other parents." "Totally normal," Sirius agreed. Lucius's eye twitched. "My lord, leave me, Lucius," I said, waving the blonde away. "I'm scheming." I'd successfully avoided the hospital wing for decades, yet their eye was mere days after my last visit. I sighed, making my way over to the bed where Ron was clutching a small mountain of letters to his chest. He stopped glaring at Hermione when he caught sight of me. "Harry," Ron cried. "Harry, Harry, Harry, you gotta help me, mate. You have to take these letters to Rommel de Vane." I sneered at him. "I'm not your servant, have Hermione do it." "I don't trust her. She burned the last ones. I think she's jealous," he said. I nodded. "She's probably still upset about Draco, though I can't say I understand the attraction. The boy's a terrible coward. He hasn't attempted any of my trials." "I am not attracted to him. I never was." Hermione believes that if she says something enough times, it will suddenly be true. So, you'll help me?" Ron asked. Before I could respond, he gushed. "You are the best, my best mate. These are all for my Romilly, except this one. It's for Remus." Hermione frowned, snatching the letter over Ron's protests. "Professor Lupin. His life is so hard," Ron whined. "You should let him join your army. I think he'd like that." Hermione groaned. "Don't have an army." I smirked. "Do you spend all of your time in denial or just most of it?" "Come on," she said with a roll of her eyes. "We have letters to deliver." As we left the hospital wing's doorway, Hermione set my pile of letters ablaze. I yelped, dropping them to the floor as she said, "I hope he's better by the time his parents visit." "His parents?" I asked. "For the parent-teacher conferences, of course," Hermione said primly. "Right, I think I heard about that." I said. Not many Gryffindor parents are coming. It's mostly Slytherins. I'm not surprised, I said. I hear they still don't have any furniture. Apparently, some idiot put Sirius Black's name up as a joke, she said, lips pursed in disapproval. Speaking of idiots, I didn't expect Ron to still be so out of it. I thought Pomfrey was going to give him the antidote. Hermione's voice was flat. She did. I winced. Oh, carrying Ron's letter to Lupin towards the owlery, she said. Honestly, how much love potion did Vane give him? The boat slid soundlessly across the lake, not even a ripple left in its path. I peered down at its inferi inhabitants, looking for anyone I recognized, and exclaimed happily upon spotting Dorcas Meadows. Sitting across from me, Dumbledore seemed to be directing an imaginary symphony with his blackened hand. "Headmaster," I said. "I'm glad you took me on this journey, and hope that you will continue to do so for all subsequent Horcrux gathering missions. But don't you have parent-teacher conferences today?" Dumbledore chuckled. "No, no. Parents would only come to me if they had a problem with one of the professors. I have the greatest confidence that such a thing won't be necessary." I raised an eyebrow. "So, you're avoiding all the complaints about Snape, then?" "Dear boy, I'm hunting Horcruxes." "I dare say this is the more pressing concern," Dumbledore said. "I sometimes wonder why I am the only person who notices his selfish manipulations." "You could have done this tomorrow," I pointed out. "Perhaps, but then you would have missed class. Or yesterday. And rob you of a well-earned weekend," he asked, shaking his head dramatically. We disembarked and approached a potion-filled basin at the island's center. Dumbledore looked at me gravely. "I'm afraid that this potion cannot be banished or physically removed. The only way to get to the locket inside is to drink it." "I am not doing that," I shouted, scrambling towards the safety of the inferi-infested lake. "Of course not," Dumbledore assured me with a cold smile. "I am the one who shall drink it. I suspect it will be terribly painful, possibly deadly. You may even have to force-feed me in the end." "Whoa, whoa, whoa," I said, waving my wand around to get his attention. "That seems pretty extreme. I was not going to be the sole witness to Albus Dumbledore's mysterious death. That would raise all sorts of suspicions, and then no one would let me work with children." "It's a ritual," Dumbledore said. "To take a part of Voldemort's being, I must give a part of mine." "Voldemort's paranoid, though. He probably wouldn't want to poison someone to death every time he checked on his Horcrux, right?" Dumbledore nodded slowly. "I suppose. So he probably put in a back door, a password or something, in Parseltongue." I stepped forward, hissing, "Slytherin, slither out." It may seem cheesy, but that's actually the most complicated pun you can make in Parseltongue. Dumbledore seemed surprised, almost certainly a ruse, as the emerald potion drained from the basin. "Harry, how did you know the password? There are only 3 syllables in Parseltongue. It's mostly a matter of context and intonation." "You're a Parselmouth, then," he said. "Yees," I said slowly. Dumbledore leaned forward, peering into my eyes atop his half-moon glasses. "Harry, were you the heir of Slytherin?" "No," I snapped. "I don't know why everyone thinks that. It's all right if you were. No one was hurt, and you've been a paragon of the light ever since," he said. "I'm not the heir," I grumbled, snatching the locket from the now empty basin. I looped it around my neck as we rowed silently back across the lake. Something bothered me, however. The balance was off, too light and slightly lopsided, possibly a result of its prolonged exposure to the poisonous potion, but still, I opened the locket, and a taunting note fell out. Elsewhere, Lord Voldemort felt a sudden and inexplicable flash of rage. "You must look at the bright side, my boy." I glared at him. Dumbledore cheerfully continued, "At least Voldemort does not possess the locket." That was half of the problem. Voldemort should have the locket, and by Voldemort, I mean its rightful owner, me. And I didn't drink a mysterious yet certainly dangerous potion to retrieve a mere decoy. I threw the locket at him, and the wizard happily pocketed it. We came upon the gates of Hogwarts, which were badly dented and hung half open. The grounds were torn up, and several trees had been slashed with a sword. Families were still hanging around, trading tearful goodbyes or nursing minor wounds. Among them were Ron, telling his family all about the love of his life, Ginevra, whose hair was several inches shorter than earlier that day, and Neville, with a bloody sword slung across his shoulders. Luna was trying to balance on one foot, but when she spotted me, her enthusiastic wave sent her tumbling to the grass. "Hello, Harry. Honestly, I leave the grounds for one day, and everything ends up destroyed. What in Merlin's name happened? What in Merlin's name happened? I roared, glaring at my bedraggled group of Death Eaters. Sirius Black shoved Lucius forward, natural since it was his foolish plan that had led to this mess. My lord, I'm afraid that someone recognized Sirius Black and mobilized an attack. Can't imagine why. He's been on the conference list for some time, Severus drawled. It turns out that several members of the Order of the Phoenix have children at the school and were battle-ready, Lucius said. Some kid showed up with the sword of Gryffindor, which was bloody awesome, Sirius added. I, for one, was shocked, Severus said. Longbottom is failing defense against the dark arts. Fenrir Greyback said, then there was some Weasley babbling about werewolf rights. Mr. Weasley is well known for his idiocy, Severus said. He had some pretty good points, actually. I tried to turn him, but he got me with a stunner, Fenrir said, rubbing his still frozen arm. That was crazy, Goyle said. That Rommel Devane girl sure is lucky. I dunno what that blonde chick was doing, but we still haven't found Rookwood, Sirius said. And then it turned out that Potter had left on some sort of field trip, so we retreated, Lucius finished. I see, I murmured, stroking Slytherin's locket. Earlier, I'd had a sudden urge to check on the Horcrux, only to nearly trip over its pedestal on the way out the door. I asked, Sirius, is there any particular reason this locket was sitting in your parlor? My right-hand man shrugged. Maybe you gave it to me for safekeeping. The locket jostled slightly at my nod, then settled warmly against my chest. Right, that does seem like something I would do. 50 points to Luna Lovegood. For the most exquisite haircut I've seen since my childhood, 50 points to Ginevra Weasley. For identifying Sirius Black and dueling him to a standstill, 50 points to Hermione Granger. Apparently, the latest battle had created quite a few heroes. Dumbledore had been going on for 20 minutes. His skin was grey, his eyes dull, yet still he spoke. The students were whispering among themselves, and even the castle was beginning to grow anxious, if the dancing silverware was any indication. For Gryffindor bravery, quick feet, and sharp wit, 50 points to Neville Longbottom. The students laughed, clapping Neville on the back. I'm not sure why. Dumbledore was clearly insulting him. For a stunning performance, 50 points to Ronald Weasley. Finally, a loud cheer greeted this statement, and Dumbledore paused until it quieted. For demonstrating foreign language proficiency in a poisonous situation, 50 points to Harry Potter. It appears that Gryffindor has won the cup. Congratulations to Gryffindor and to everyone who fought in this battle. Now I can hear your stomachs rumbling from here, so without further ado, may I speak, Headmaster? I said, standing up to survey the disappointed crowd. Dumbledore sighed. Mr. Potter, you no longer have the authority to add or remove points. That's fine, I said with a negligent wave of my wand. I turned to the crowd. Many of you fought bravely yesterday. Many more of you hid like firsties, most especially the firsties. Clearly, the Dark Lord is a dangerous foe, willing to hurt children on a whim and ready to take Wizarding Britain under his reign. Keeping that in mind, I would like to announce that I am no longer neutral on the Voldemort issue. I sat down, and the leaving feast appeared with a joyous pop. Chapter 17, Chapter 9, Harry Potter versus himself, PT. 1. The delivery owl drifted into Hermione's kitchen, buoyed by a summer breeze. While she offered it a nut and a bit of toast, I snagged the profit. That's rather rude, you know, she huffed as the owl flew away. I glanced up from the newspaper, frowning. You're the one who asked me to come outside for meals. Hermione pouted. But you stole my paper. You also asked me to keep up with the news, I said. With a groan and a muttered, too early for this, Hermione turned her attention to her breakfast. I hummed thoughtfully as I skimmed the front page. Looks like Dumbledore died. Hermione gasped, dropping her toast, and I continued. Some sort of wasting sickness, probably dragon pox. I told him to get that arm checked out. Is there a funeral? She asked, all sniffles and crocodile tears. Doesn't say. I spotted several familiar names in the article below it. Death Eaters have taken over the ministry, too. Hermione's eyes widened, all attempts at grief forgot. What? Doesn't explicitly say that, but it's pretty heavily implied, I assured her. Also, Snape's the new headmaster. Hermione pushed her plate away. Oh, Harry, this is awful. I know, Slytherin will win the House Cup for sure, I said. Not that, she snapped. Voldemort has control over Hogwarts. He hates Muggle-borns, allegedly. And he despises you, and I'm your Muggle-born best friend. There's absolutely no way we can return to Hogwarts. How are we supposed to prepare for our newts? Blinked. Really? That's your problem with this. I assumed you were talking about the murder. She buried her face in her hands and seemed to be having some difficulty breathing. It'll be fine, I reassured her. I just turned 17. We grab Ron, go on the run, and finish the task Dumbledore set for us. Hermione peeked upwards, eyes alight with curiosity. Task. There are 5 items necessary to defeat Voldemort, I said. We have to gather them all and use them in a dark ritual. It was time to collect my Horcruxes. Once Voldemort fell, who knew what would happen to them? I continued. They include the Gaunt Ring, Voldemort's pet snake, Ravenclaw's diadem, Hufflepuff's cup. Those are lost artifacts, Harry, Hermione said. People have been searching for them for generations. I snorted. Voldemort found them. How hard can it be? We don't even have to find the last one. He's currently wearing Slytherin's locket. So we'll need to get it off of his neck then. Hermione asked. Not a problem, I said cheerfully. If he has it, then it'll be there when we need it. He's actually helping us by keeping it close because he is arrogant and insane. She rolled her eyes but smiled. That makes things easier for us, I suppose. We'll need some place to stay, way ahead of you, I assured her. Not the trunk, she said. No, not that. It's better than the trunk. I'll tell you about it once we've grabbed Ron. I brought my trunk out from the guest bedroom. I held a hand out to Hermione, but she refused it with a tight smile. You go ahead. I need to pack and have a talk with my parents. With a quick wave, I apparated to the Weasleys' hovel. Arriving at the burrow, Hermione carefully stepped around my trunk, which was spewing a pearly mist. Soon, I would need to add fairy wings to my cauldron of Felix Felicis. Hi, guys, Hermione said, nodding to Ron, Ginevra, and me before turning to the man beside us. Nice to see you again, Professor. Lupin smiled at her. I'm not a professor anymore. Please call me Remus. Something deep inside Hermione exploded at the thought of addressing a former authority figure as an equal, and she devolved into stuttered protests. Ron interjected. Lupin's working with the werewolves now. Lupin sighed. They're not working with me, though. Not after all the werewolf rights legislation that just got pushed through. I snorted. It's about time, really. They were first suggested decades ago. Lupin said, I'm surprised you all know so much about this. Long-standing interest, I said. My ex-girlfriend was really into it. I think Ron was blushing, although it was hard to tell with the potion's fumes obscuring his face. With an arrogant tilt to her chin, Hermione declared, everyone should care about oppression. I don't actually care that much. I just like spending time with Harry, Ginevra clarified. That's horrible, I said. Your brother is a werewolf. I am not, Ron wailed. Lupin slinked away during the ensuing argument. The whole incident was terribly upsetting. I was almost certain that Ron had come to terms with his lycanthropy. Giving up, I turned to Hermione. You aren't going to believe this. Dumbledore got us presents. I was right. Hermione didn't believe me at all. Harry, she said delicately, Dumbledore is dead. I beamed. I know. I think I like him better this way. He never did this when he was alive. Hermione paled. He left us stuff, Ron said, like inheritance. Us, Hermione said, the 3 of us, not Ginevra, I said, hardly surprising he's never liked her. Ginevra pouted. Really, I don't think we ever met. That explains it then, I said. Hermione frowned. I've barely spoken to him myself. Have you, Ron? Ron shook his head. Her brow wrinkled. What did he give us? You got a book. I handed it to her. Because everyone knows you like reading, Ron got Dumbledore's wand, and I got a signet ring. Ron swished the elderwood wand, causing weak black sparks to fall out, and I flashed the gaunt ring at her. Ron said, the stuff came with a note, but Harry wouldn't let me read it. The note had said something along the lines of, Harry, do not wear this ring. It is a Horcrux and will kill you. I'm speaking from personal experience. Do not put on the ring. Good luck, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. He said that the ring's one of our special items and wished us luck. Why'd you burn the note then? Ron asked. It's sensitive information, Ron, I shouted. If we keep it around, then anyone could find out this ring's importance. Ron blushed with shame. On second thought, that might have been the slowly reddening mist. I made a note to check on that potion soon. You shouldn't take him on your trip, Ginevra said. I'll be a better Ron. Ginevra, we've been over this. We need your spy network. Also, I don't like her that much. But I raised a hand, though I'm not sure if she saw it in the thickening mist. Enough! Only Hermione and Ron shall accompany me to Potter Manor. Hermione said, Potter Manor, my ancestral home hidden for all these years. I said, you've never seen it, have you? Hermione said. I paused. Well, no. Are you sure you have a manor? Don't all pureblood families have manors? No, Harry, Hermione said. That fad occurred during the 12th century when wizarding families were concerned about possibly going under siege. That's why they have such extensive warding, and their larger grounds can be put to use for agricultural purposes. The Potter family isn't nearly old enough for that. Ron asked, what about my manor? Lost to gambling debts. The Malfoys own it now, Hermione said. My jaw fell open, and red mist drifted inside. It tasted vaguely of cinnamon. Is that why you hate each other so much? Ron said. I guess. Mostly it's 'cause they're gits. We were silent for a few moments, contemplating the ephemeral nature of history. At least that's what I was thinking about. I'm fairly certain Hermione was, too. I don't know about the Weasleys. Hermione interrupted our musings. Harry, if there isn't a Potter Manor, then where are we going to stay? The trunk, of course, I said. My cauldron of Felix Felicis promptly exploded, knocking the trunk over and sending a rush of black smoke towards us. Ginevra giggled. I feel loads better about staying behind. I woke up muttering, I always hated that name. Ron and Hermione were still asleep. The girl hugged her wand like a teddy bear while the Weasley curled into a ball as if to take up as little space as possible. The ceiling slid open to reveal starlight, and dragging my cloak behind me, I trudged upwards. I waved it closed again as I settled invisibly onto the grass and said, Voldemort, pop, pop. 2 Death Eaters arrived, waving their wands around wildly in search of rebels. The taller one frowned. There's no one here. There's gotta be, the second grunted. Maybe the taboo machine's acting up. The shorter one jerked his head towards my home. Or maybe they're in that trunk there. It seems pretty small, he mused. The other said, maybe it's one of those magically expanded trunks. I wouldn't go in there if it was, he cried. My cousin had one of those. The thing broke and we had to bury him in it. The second snorted. I know, I was at the funeral too. Maybe this is a test, the taller said slowly, from the Dark Lord. Maybe he's trying to trick us. Probably, the shorter said. But we ought to take the trunk, though. I wouldn't be so sure it could be booby-trapped. We can't just head back, he snapped. I mean, somebody around here said Voldemort. Pop, pop. The 2 earlier Death Eaters raised their hands while their compatriots scanned the clearing for enemies. Whoa, whoa, don't shoot. This moron here said Voldemort. They all groaned. Pop, pop. One of the men from the second group raised a hand for silence. Okay, clearly somebody said Vol, the word that nobody's allowed to say. They all breathed a sigh of relief. He continued, let's all agree to leave and not come back to this spot for a few minutes, all right? The Death Eaters nodded, popping away. I wandered back into the trunk, rousing Ron and Hermione. Fair warning, we aren't allowed to say Voldemort anymore. So if you really want to say Voldemort, I'd suggest you say Voldemort now because, in about 5 minutes, we have to stop saying Voldemort. It was a plain barn owl, brown and plump. A ribbon on its ankle identified it as a rented bird from Diagon Alley. It dropped the letter at my feet, not waiting for a response, and didn't even twitch as it passed through Grimmauld Place's wards. Wingardium Leviosa, I said, the letter flicking upwards and unfolding in front of me. It read, Dear Lord Voldemort, you may wonder why I, Harry Potter, have written you this letter. There are a few reasons for this. First, I would like to inform you that my associate has brewed a cauldron of polyjuice potion while I have kidnapped several of your Death Eaters. Further, we just followed this owl to your base. By the time you've finished this letter, it will be too late. Love, Harry Potter, I leapt out of bed, humming merrily to myself. Hermione, for some inexplicable reason, immediately began panicking. She nearly tripped over our lamp, better known as Trelawney's prophecy orb, on her way towards me. Funny, I thought she'd finally relaxed about sleeping in the trunk. Harry, why are you so happy? She asked. You know who's killing his own people, I exclaimed. Ron groaned, dragging himself into a sitting position. What did you do, mate? I sent him a letter. He thinks we're breaking into his base. He'll probably calm down in a few days, but then I'll send him another letter, I said. Come to think of it, we should probably break into Gringotts while he's distracted. Ron let out a strangled squeak, and Hermione weakly asked, Sorry. That's where Bellatrix put Hufflepuff's cup, I said. Okay, this is. Hermione ran a hand through her hair, her face gaunt under the orb's bluish light. Okay, we can do this. Let me get the Felix Felicis. She was clearly delusional with fear. I frowned. Hermione, there isn't any Felix Felicis. You made me stop brewing it for some inane reason. Not that Felix Felicis, Hermione said. I'm talking about the vial I got from Slughorn for brewing the Besta Mortentia. Ron said, You've still got that. She snorted, rummaging through her purse. Of course. It's not like I just used it the day I got it. That would be highly irresponsible. To be fair, that was how I found the Chamber of Secrets in 4 hours by skipping 5 hints. My original 6th year was quite the adventure, though it could never compare to 3rd. There it is, she cried, pulling out a golden vial. It shimmered in the light of the prophecy orb. Hermione, are you still mad? I whined, following my best minion through the busy London streets. After several tense moments, Ron answered for her. I'm pretty sure she is. I tossed the cup of Hufflepuff between my hands, enjoying the familiar warmth of its golden sides. Come on, we got the cup, and everything went great. I know they're called the Unforgivables, but you can still forgive me. Preferably in the next 30 seconds or so. Get in the trunk, she snarled. I blinked, suddenly noticing the trunk propped against a lamppost. Right, Hermione had cast a Notice Me Not charm on it. I followed her inside. I mean, really, would Moody have taught us the incantations if he didn't expect us to use? She whirled around at the bottom of the staircase, wand aimed at my head. You cast the Cruciatius curse. On a Death Eater, I said. Her chin trembled, typical Hermione, only accepting violent retribution when she does it. It was cruel and horrible and unnecessary. I contest that, I said. You were taking Felix Felicis. If it wasn't necessary to our success, the potion wouldn't have let it happen. I refused to believe that torture was necessary. There were any number of options, she said. Come to think of it, isn't that potion supposed to give you a perfect day? My eyes widened. Hermione, you don't actually like that sort of thing. In fact, you're probably still under its effects. You want this argument? No, she doesn't, Ron said. Hermione smiled. Thank you, Ron, it's nice to see you have some faith in me. That was probably the Felix Felicis working. He turned red. I know I've fallen for a lot of stupid arguments and things, but I think I know you pretty well, Myone. She flushed and glanced away, probably contemplating how her entire life was a ruse constructed by the Department of Mysteries. They were silent for some time, not even looking in my direction. It irked me. I know you're angry, but you don't have to ignore me, I said, the cup's handle clenched in my fist. Yes, we're angry, Hermione said, pulling Ron into her mutiny. I shook my head, frustrated by her disloyalty and hypocrisy. I don't know why this is suddenly a problem. Nobody cared when Crumb cast the Cruciatius. She gaped, surprised by my brilliant arguing tactics. He was under the Imperius. I snorted. Oh, sure he was. Everyone's under the Imperius. Tell me, Hermione, who are all these wizards casting the Imperius? Maybe we need to accept that the people we're looking for are the ones crucioing people. So you then, Ron said. I shook my head, setting Hufflepuff's cup on the coffee table. No, of course not. I can't be held accountable for my actions. After all, I was under the Imperius. Another letter sat upon my desk. I glared at the parchment hard enough to burn a hole through it, then frantically covered it with my cloak to smother the resulting flames. A reparo returned it to a legible state, and slumping into my throne, I read, Dear Lord Voldemort, I see that you have once again failed to catch myself and my companions, despite killing several of your Death Eaters. I've noticed that this happens a lot with you, and I am compelled to ask if you just really like killing your own people. Regardless, my sense of fair play urges me to once again inform you of our visit tomorrow. Love, Harry Potter. P.S. I would like to assure you that I shall not be masquerading as Lucius Malfoy. You've killed him, Hermione whispered, eyes wide. I know he's a bigot and probably a murderer, but I can't believe you just consigned a man to death. That does seem pretty nasty, mate, Ron agreed. I had no idea what she was talking about. Hermione, I have no idea what you're talking about. Lucius Malfoy, she cried. You just set him up to be killed. No, I didn't. I specifically said that I wouldn't be him. He's probably the only one who's safe. Hermione huffed, placing her hands on her hips. Harry, you singled him out in a clearly sarcastic manner. You're overthinking things, I said. Ah, that's what I think too, Ron said. And won't you know who overthink it? That's possible, but then he'll probably just decide that I want him to kill Lucius Malfoy for some reason and refuse to touch him. But what if he kills him just to be safe? I rolled my eyes. Fine, I'll ask him. Ron gaped. You what? I raised a hand to silence the Weasley as I yanked Voldemort's consciousness into my head. Yes or no question. Are you planning to kill Lucius Malfoy? After a few moments listening, I said, I'm well aware that I told you I wouldn't be him. No, I don't retract that statement. I turned to my minions. He said he wasn't going to kill Lucius. Clearly, I was correct, and why, yes, that is the cup of Helga Hufflepuff. I'm not sure why you're surprised about this. Bellatrix has always been one of ours. On that note, have you seen your diary anywhere recently? No reason, just curious. Voldemort slammed my head against the wall, then fled back to his body. Hermione was the first to find her voice. Were you actually talking to he who must not be named? I wasn't talking to myself. I paused for a moment, realizing that I was lying. Regardless, he's gone now, and he's really upset about something. How could I not remember where I'd left my soul? I struggled to calm myself, pacing Grimmauld Place's dining room. The table had been transfigured into a throne, and the room cleared for an emergency meeting of my inner circle. Surely one of them had my boyhood diary. My eyes swept over the group, smaller now than it had ever been. It was for the better, I knew, cleared of traitors and spies. I turned to the most loyal of them all, Severus Snape. Severus, did I ever give you a dark artifact to watch over for me? Severus shook his head. No, my lord, I'm afraid I was living in the same castle as Dumbledore. The risk was too great. Of course, I said. Thank you for poisoning him, by the way. It was my pleasure, he drawled. I presume you were in a similar situation, Hagrid. Hagrid nodded, silent as always. Some might have found this suspicious, but I knew how invested he was in our success. After all, Giants' Rights was a founding principle of the Death Eaters. Sirius, did I ever give you a small black book? I inquired. Sirius laughed. Nah, you gave me a necklace. My hands unconsciously drifted to the locket around my neck. Yes, I suppose I did. What about you, Lucius? Lucius said, No, my lord, you've given me nothing at all. May I please go? I frowned. Why? I need to brush my hair, he said. Didn't you just do that? He shook his head, terribly mussing his blonde locks. Yes, but I need to do it again. With a chuckle, I said, You may go in a moment. Your son was trying to open the room of requirement, wasn't he? Yes, my lord, although he gave up on it some time ago. Tell him to complete whatever trials are necessary, I said. He nodded, increasingly pale as I delayed his time with a hairbrush. Of course, my lord. Also, alert your sources in Hogwarts that we're moving in. This location is no longer secure, and Trelawney has informed me that the castle will be a fortunate place for us. Having houseguests, I found, could be rather tiring. Gone were the days of lounging in my trunk, brewing a few cauldrons of Felix Felicis and plotting against Dumbledore. Whenever silence lingered and I began to fall asleep under my invisibility cloak, someone invariably interrupted the peace. Usually Ron. The redhead groaned. Are you still reading that book? I dragged my invisibility cloak off of my head in order to glare at him, and Hermione glanced up from the tales of Beedle the Bard, lips pursed. It's very informative. It's for kids, he shouted. She rolled her eyes. Informative about cultural standards, Ronald. The morality tales told to children reveal a great deal about a society's values. Ron blinked. Wah, morality tales, Ronald, she said. They teach wizarding children what wizards think are important lessons. For instance, I said, the moral of the Fountain of Fair Fortune is that the magic was within you all along. The moral of the Warlock's hairy heart is that you shouldn't care what anyone else thinks of you. And the moral of the tale of the three brothers is that you should be invisible at all times. Hermione frowned at me, as she often does. That isn't the moral at all. It's that you can't cheat death. Really, Hermione, did you even read the tale? It clearly states that the youngest brother spends his entire life under an invisibility cloak, only taking it off when he wanted to die. I'm not sure why he would have wanted that, though, I mused, pulling my cloak tightly around my shoulders. Ron laughed. Probably because he spent his whole life under an invisibility cloak. Hermione's face reddened. He did not. I think he had kids under there, Ron said. It is disgusting, and he probably kept his entire family under the cloak to prevent vengeance from death, I said. It was what I would do. Ron said, I bet they're still there. It was a metaphor, Hermione shouted. Her voice echoed throughout the trunk and Ron paled, clearly reminded of his mother's howlers. Did the story say it was a metaphor? I asked. Of course not, she snapped. Then how do you know? I said. Starting to sound like a Slytherin mate, Ron said. I brushed him off. Actually, I'm sounding more like Dumbledore. Yes, Hermione said stiffly, and he's the one who left me the book. I think it might be some sort of clue. I snorted, falling back into bed with a thump. He's obviously manipulating us. He set us up on an adventure, and we won't understand half of it until he explains afterwards. He can't, though, Ron said. He's dead. I rolled onto my side, mumbling. He's got a portrait. It didn't take long to settle into my new office. I was perfectly content to keep Dumbledore's knickknacks and expensive pensive. I wouldn't have minded the phoenix either, but it had disappeared sometime before my arrival. I took a lemon drop from Dumbledore's tin, rolling it between my fingers. After many years, I finally had the chance to test it for poison. Severus Snape swept into my office. It appears that the students are rebelling. Why? I asked. Because we are Death Eaters. I'm not an idiot, I snapped. But I will admit to continued confusion. I haven't done anything worth rebelling against. Dumbledore has filled the Gryffindors' heads with ridiculous notions, Severus said. Right, he always did favor them. I never understood where he got that bias. Dumbledore went to Durmstrang. The Hufflepuffs are following them, as they always do, he said, and most of the Ravenclaws haven't even noticed. And the Slytherins? I asked. Severus smirked. Passive-aggressive, but that's probably because you killed their parents. Potter killed some of them, I said modestly. Potter did not publicly take credit for their deaths. In retrospect, I probably should have taken Bellatrix off of my public relations team prior to her revelation as a traitor. Have you tried taking house points? Severus nodded. I did, but they ran out. I snorted. There's your problem. You lose all your power when they see they can't win. That's probably why they're so upset, Severus drawled. Also, the Carrows have been crucioing first years. I'd expected the Carrows to be incompetent, but this was actively hurting the learning environment. Clearly, they would have to go. I scowled, waving Severus away with a request to send up Sirius and the Malfoys. They arrived quickly. The Malfoys were pale and nervous, but Sirius retained the relaxed demeanor that had earned him his place at my right hand. I smiled, Lucius flinched, and I smiled wider in response. Sirius, would you like to be the Muggle Studies professor? He shrugged. Yeah, sure. Then I shall be the defense against the dark arts professor, I declared, staring dreamily at the ceiling. That's a great idea, Sirius said. Lucius, displaying his pessimistic nature, said, Are you sure about this, my lord? Sirius smirked. What, you think he'll be a bad professor? No, of course not, Lucius said. I was simply concerned that he might be distracted from other goals, like running Wizarding Britain. You underestimate me, I said coldly. I think you'll be brilliant, my lord, the younger Malfoy blurted out. I chuckled, rising from my desk to approach him. Ah, Draco, I've been meaning to speak with you. How go the trials? Draco peered intently at his toes. I'm stuck. I raised an eyebrow. Stuck. I can't get into the girls' dormitory for the next key piece. There are wards. I clenched my wand in annoyance. For Merlin's sake, you're a wizard. Turn yourself into a girl. I can think of 3 ways off the top of my head. Draco looked pale. Oh, or you could befriend a girl and have her do it. I waved my wand around for emphasis. Then you'll find out about friendship or something. What's important is that you find a lesson and learn it. Thank you, he said, voice trembling along with the rest of his body. You can leave now, I said. Malfoy clone scurried away, likely planning to join his classmates' rebellion. I shook my head and turned my attention back to Dumbledore's lemon drops. A bird's eye view, Fox Parvi landed upon the apprentice's shoulder. The muscle beneath me was tensed, the shiny sword raised for battle. It pleased my eyes, and I sang in support. The red one covered her ears, revealing her corruption to the world. But the others did not understand this. Evil filled their nest. It was in the apprentice's nature to fight it. I am the same. For now I would aid him, lunge at the evil ones, claw out their eyes. But the apprentice did not need me. He was too noble. He would do the right thing without being watched. My old roost was dead and my new roost gone. The new roost would return, as he always did. When he came, I would be there to ensure that he denied his darker nature. I feared what he would do if I was not there, watching. Chapter 18. Chapter 9. Harry Potter versus himself, PT. 2. Ron woke slowly. He found himself unable to rise and meet the day, partially because he was still drowsy and partially because he was tied up in the middle of our trunk. Gee, guys. I took a leisurely walk around his captured form. My invisibility cloak ensured that he heard only measured footsteps and an eerie voice. I always knew that you would betray us. Did you really believe that we wouldn't find out, Ron? Find out what? You've been sneaking out of the trunk, carefully avoiding my traps. But you were foolish. Hermione saw you returning. This wouldn't have been a problem, of course, if you had been invisible. In her ominous, shadowy corner, Hermione groaned. You do have to take off the cloak sometime. Really? That's what the youngest brother did, and then he died, I spat. Hermione stepped into the light, glaring at me instead of Ron. Anyway, if you have an explanation, Ronald, now would be a good time. I know you can't see it right now, but my wand is pointing right at you, I helpfully added. I've been sending letters, he said. Traitorous letters. Hush, Harry, Hermione said. Who are you sending letters to? Fenrir Greyback, Ron muttered. I knew it. Also, who is that? A vicious werewolf who follows you-know-who, Hermione said, frowning. We're sort of pen pals now, Ron said, struggling against his ropes, or possibly attempting to shrug. He's got some really good points, actually. Hermione gaped at him. He bites children. I said some. Also, he only went after wizarding kids, cause he wanted to change cultural perceptions about werewolves by forcing prominent purebloods to face the issue. Ron paused for a moment. I think that's a quote. But Remus, I'm writing to him too, Ron said. Also my mum, she worries, and I don't want any more howlers. I nodded. She almost got us killed that one time. Ron grinned, either at my remark or Hermione's gullible decision to free him from the ropes. I know you don't really understand parents, Harry, but she's really stressed out about all this, especially pretending I have dragon pox. I bet Hermione's parents are going balmy too. Hermione peered intently down at her wand, perhaps checking it for tampering. Actually, they don't remember that they have a daughter. Yeah, the Dursleys did that sometimes, I commiserated. Harry, that's horrible. Maybe for you, I thought it was great. Tears filled Hermione's eyes. It isn't like that. They aren't abusive like your family. I erased their memories. Ron's eyes widened. Why would you? They wouldn't have gone to Australia if they knew I was still in England, but they simply aren't safe here. Hermione, that's evil, I said. The brunette whirled around to glare at me, wand raised. Will you stop saying things like that? But it is. You turned them into completely different people so that you could ignore their explicit wishes. Hermione, you murdered your parents. Even I didn't murder all of my parents. I'll set them right afterwards, she said. Unless you die, Ron said. It was as if her vocal cords had been hit with a shriveling curse, leaving her voice small and childlike. You guys can do it then. I'm terrible at memory charms, and do you really trust Ron with your parents' brains? I asked. Hey, Ron said. But you're sort of right. I don't know anything about memory charms. Hermione desperately tried to justify her despicable act. It's better this way. They're safe from you-know-who. Her reasoning baffled me. Hermione, the Death Eaters don't care about your parents. How would they even know where they live? I've spent a couple of summers there, and even I don't know where they live. But they could still be caught in a raid or something, she mumbled, hugging herself tightly. That seems fairly unlikely, I said. We were silent for some time. Eventually, Ron said, What do we do now? We haven't captured Ginny yet, Hermione said. Separating her from you-know-who could be difficult. That is a priority, I agreed. First, however, we have to go to Australia to fix Hermione's terrible mistake. Though our long and dangerous mission into the outback was successful, Hermione had retreated into our trunk to sob into her pillow. I'm evil. I'm actually evil. Ron was above us, comforting the Grangers, and if the situation called for it, obliviating them of Hermione's confession. That left me to calm down the most vicious member of our trio. So, you're evil, she wailed, burying her face further into the downy fabric. I continued, that's not a bad thing. Plenty of people are evil, and they live perfectly good lives, like Dumbledore. Hermione lifted her head, watching me with blank, red eyes. Dumbledore. Yes, he was best friends with Grindelwald when they were kids, but then Dumbledore killed him, I said. He didn't kill any of his other friends, however, which shows his great self-restraint. There's something wrong with you, she said into her pillow. I glanced around, casually checking for listeners before admitting. Hermione, much like you, my nature is also somewhat evil. But I channel that evil into constructive aims like murdering the Dark Lord. We should probably get back to that, by the way. It's been a few weeks, but what if I'm the next Dark Lord? I don't think you know who will like that very much. You'll have to kill him anyway, I said. Hermione giggled, smiling up at me. I don't know what was funny about that, but I took it as a good sign. I continued, you'll be fine so long as you listen to your friends when they tell you that you're committing an atrocity. Then, later, when you're the Dark Lady of Wizarding Britain, you reward them by making them the headmaster of Hogwarts. Sirius Black twirled his wand between his fingers, eyes making a lazy sweep over the panicked denizens of Diagon Alley. Timid shopkeepers peered at the group of Death Eaters from windows and doorways. A woman screeched and flailed under the Cruciatius, and Nagini sprawled in the sun, a humanoid bulge in her stomach. Black groaned. Right, 5 minutes and I'm already bored. Any chance we can head back? Voldemort said. I'm surprised at you, Black. I distinctly recall your enthusiasm for raids. He shrugged. Hey, I've got papers to grade and 6 kids in for detention tonight. Having a job kinda sucks. There was a loud groan from inside Nagini. At that moment I stepped into view and Voldemort hissed, Potter. Hi, Tom, I said, approaching the Dark Lord and his right-hand man. He sneered at me. Don't call me by that name. You've made it impossible to say your old name, and I can't just call you know who. That would be silly. Voldemort thoughtfully tapped his chin with his wand. You could call me my lord. Well, I suppose I could, but that would be untrue. Show some respect for your betters, a Death Eater shouted as he jabbed his wand at me. Imperio. For a moment there was a distortion in my vision, and everything seemed very bright. It ended as the Death Eater barked, bow to him. I gave the man a bored look. Crucio. He fell wailing to the ground. I smirked. You should show respect for your betters. Voldemort laughed, and Black also cracked an uneasy grin. That was a good one. So have you come here to protect these miserable excuses for witches and wizards? Actually, no, I said. I just needed to grab something. Red light filled the alleyway. The Death Eaters, shopkeepers, shoppers, and even I watched, stunned, as the light receded and Ron hauled Nagini up by the neck. Hermione, shaking herself into action, grabbed the snake's tail and apparated them away. With a cheerful wave towards Voldemort and his right-hand man, I followed. Where am I? Nagini hissed several hours later. Ron's stunner was truly astounding. You're at your new home, I said. Welcome to the trunk, you're following me now. The snake backed up. Why, I can talk to you. She sniffed anxiously at the air. That is true, but you are not my master. I raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Less so now. Nagini said and slithered towards my feet. I patted her head. You're taking the piss out of me, Ron said. Hermione frowned. How did you just do that? I explained that I was the superior Parselmouth, I said. She argued, but soon realized that I was right and has endeavored to do exactly as I say. I think we can all learn a lot from Nagini. Ron laughed, still daydreaming about our successful raid. I can't believe you were actually bait for once. I smirked. I was more of a distraction, and you completely ignored that Imperius. Then Crucio the caster, Hermione said, still judgmental despite coming to terms with her own evil. And I suppose you're going to say that you have an insane amount of willpower because you're the descendant of Merlin or something. I chuckled. No, there's a trick to it, actually. You can't be affected by 2 Imperiuses at once. Ron blinked. What? I attempted to lower my speaking to Weasley levels. If you're under the Imperius from one person, then a new Imperius won't make you do things. Hermione nibbled her lip. You are under the Imperius. I am under the Imperius, I said, pointing my wand at my temple. You why? I stroked Nagini, who was currently curled around my leg, squeezing affectionately. To protect me from the Imperius, of course. I just order myself to do whatever I want, so it doesn't really affect me. Ron said, so when you said that you couldn't be blamed for crucioing that guy cause you were under the Imperius, you weren't joking. Why would I joke about something like that? Hermione's eyes were wide with wonder and admiration. Harry, how long have you been doing this? On and off since I learned about the spell. 3 years, she squeaked, more like 60. Yes, that cannot be healthy, she muttered. Take it off, please. I did so, and Hermione stole my wand. The sink unfolded, revealing the shadowed and slimy entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. Draco Malfoy peered into the darkness, keeping his feet firmly on the tiles of the girls' loo. I suppose this explains a lot. I was starting to think that Potter was a pervert. I nodded. Yes, the current location of the chamber is an unfortunate consequence of the constantly shifting nature of Hogwarts. Draco seemed troubled. This doesn't make sense, though. How can one of the trials require a Parselmouth? The other ones at least pretended to be fair. I snorted. You don't need to be a Parselmouth to open it. There are only like 4 syllables in Parseltongue. Random hissing would probably crack it eventually. He was shocked silent at my brilliance. Besides, I continued, it's not unfair that you needed a Parselmouth because one was there. Perhaps one will always be there. Draco took a step into the chamber. Thank you, my lord. I've told you, call me Professor, I said. Also, good luck with the basilisk. Hermione, please give me my wand back, I begged. Hermione held my wand above her head, using her height advantage against me. Not until I'm sure that you won't cast an unforgivable on yourself. I took a step upon the worn wooden floor and placed a hand on her shoulder. What? No. Why would I cast an unforgivable on myself? That would be ridiculous. Give me the wand. She groaned, my wand clenched firmly in her hands. No. I can feel my magical core draining. There hasn't been a theory of magic that even postulated magical cores since the 17th century. Hermione furrowed her brow. I'm honestly not sure where you would have heard about them. Hermione, I am begging you, she glared at me. Will you stop? I'll never stop. You'll have to Imperio me. I will not, she ground out. I'll set Nagini on you, I said. Nagini hissed at Hermione. Nagini hissed and Hermione swallowed heavily. You wouldn't. You're right, I mumbled. Hermione blinked. Really, I whirled around to my other minion. Ron, give me Dumbledore's wand. Ron's freckles stood darkly against his white face. Ah, can't, sorry. You aren't even using it. It's not a very good match for me, he mumbled. But I still can't give it to you. Don't let Hermione bully you into denying me this, I said. Honestly. Will you stop trying to manipulate Ron? Hermione raised a hand to keep me silent. And no, I am not going to stop you with the Imperius just because you have some sort of addiction. I glared at my traitorous followers. I am not addicted. It's just that everything is terrible now. The colors are too bright and the light is sharper and I feel guilty about everything. Oh, Merlin, is this how you feel all the time? Ah, no. Ron denied his suffering, but I could see the truth in his eyes. Wait, had they always been blue? Hermione pinched the bridge of her nose, wild hair drifting over her eyes. I'm sorry, Harry, but you'll just have to ride out this, whatever this is. She was wrong, I suddenly realized. I raced towards the cupboard and dug through my robes. With a triumphant cry, I unearthed a wand and held it aloft. Hermione frowned, and with a twirl of her wand said, Expelliarmus. I whimpered. Hermione examined the wand with a gentle frown. Where did you even get this? I stole it from Neville. The reason doesn't even make sense now. I paused for a moment. Do you think I should give it back? Ron frowned. Ah, maybe when you're acting less crazy, or at least more your kind of crazy. I shook my head, summoning my wand from Hermione's grasp with a flick of my wrist. No, we have to go to Hogwarts. It's the only way to defeat the Dark Lord. He's killing people right now. Hermione said, Harry, right now. I can hear the screaming. It's kind of creeping me out. Besides, I really need to return Neville's wand. Hermione sighed. All right. Ron scrambled towards the trunk's desk in search of parchment. I'll Ginny. We followed Pansy Parkinson and Crabbe through the secret passageway, Ron sulking and eyeing the Slytherins with suspicion. Probably leading us into a trap, bloody Death Eaters in training. Hermione said, Ronald, stop antagonizing our allies. I don't think they're really our allies, he said. Why would Ginny send a bunch of Slytherins to get us? Parkinson flipped her dark hair dismissively. Perhaps because we're the only ones who can travel unwatched in Hogsmeade. Ron kicked a rodent's skull, sending it skittering into the darkness. I'm just saying we should V-gotten a passcode or something. Then you would be claiming that they'd intercepted our mail, Hermione said. I trailed behind them, comfortably invisible as I pulled along our trunk. It's possible they still did. That's why they were able to so seamlessly intercept our meeting, leading us ever closer to our doom. Hermione, showing a shocking lack of caution, snapped, Harry, will you stop encouraging him? Ron scowled. I just don't get why a bunch of Slytherins would help us. Parkinson disdainfully glanced at the slime dripping from the walls and the Weasley walking behind her. I'm beginning to wonder that as well. See, Crabbe grunted. The Dark Lord killed my father. Was that my fault? That might have been one of my killing curses. I shrugged off the question. That monster, The hulking boy sniffled. Everything's worse with him here, except the creature rights laws. Those are very progressive. They're a travesty, if you ask me, Parkinson said. Nobody did, Ron snapped. Why are you helping anyway? I owe Ginny a favor. Besides, Harry is an honorary Slytherin. Ron paled. He's a what now? Parkinson smirked, a slight sway in her step. Oh, yes. He did win us the House Cup in third year. But that doesn't make him. Snape thinks it does, she purred. Of course, he thinks that everyone who beats him at something is supposed to be in Slytherin. That man takes house loyalty way too far. I feel obligated to point out that, though I have the best traits of all four houses, I am more brave and noble than all of them combined, I announced. Hermione rolled her eyes. Ron said, That can't be it, though. There's gotta be some other reason. A slim figure stepped out of the darkness, red hair dazzling under our lumos. They've been a lot more helpful since I explained that I'm the heiress of Slytherin. Ron's jaw dropped. Ginny. Hi, guys. Ginevra chirped. Hermione smiled. How are you doing? Great. We've taken back most of the classrooms, 3 of the common rooms, and possibly the North Tower, depending on whether or not Trelawney's still a Death Eater. I guess you still haven't got the snake's den, Ron said. Nope, that was easy, Ginevra said. The problem is that we lost Hufflepuff. Castle moved after the Death Eaters showed up, Crabbe grunted. I had to share a bedroom with 6 puffs. Parkinson shivered with perfectly justifiable disgust. Ginevra said, We're staging expeditions into the dungeons to find it, but no luck so far. The Slytherins departed as we entered an enormous room. Piles of rubble leaned against its filthy walls, and beds were scattered about the rock floor, some holding bandaged and unconscious students. The Chamber of Secrets had certainly changed since the last time I'd visited. We passed several cauldrons as we walked. I peered into one. Felix Felicis. Neville approached us, grinning. I figured we needed all the luck we could get. Hey, Nev, one of the injured students yelled. Get away from the potions before they have another go at Cha. Neville makes the potions explode just by looking at them, Ginevra explained. Neville laughed, and the sword of Gryffindor banged against his side with each guffaw. Came in handy in the potions classroom that one time. An arm crawled over Neville's shoulder and down his chest, and Lavender's face appeared in the crook of his neck. You shouldn't stay here too long, Levi, sweetie. Hermione stepped forward to protect Ron from the potential explosion. Not surprising, her shield has always been superior. She regarded Lavender coolly. You're dating Neville now. I think he's just so brave for taking on all those Death Eaters, she cooed. Also, he's got the sword of Gryffindor, so he's the bravest guy in the whole wide world. I could have the sword of Gryffindor, Ron muttered. Hermione elbowed him, and he smiled nervously. I shoved Neville's old wand at his chest. This is yours. I found it in my trunk and was compelled by my inherent nobility to return it. Neville stared down at it, smiling softly. Wow, thanks. I don't really use magic much, and my new wand's a better match anyway, but this was my dad's. Good to have it back. I nodded. Yes. Ginevra spun in place, short hair twirling around her head like a dress. Welcome to the Chamber of Secrets. Hermione glanced around. So you're really the heiress. I just assumed you had caught Harry's sense of humor. Of course I am, Ginevra said. I command the basilisk. She hissed. Come. Or possibly strangle. Her accent was terrible. The basilisk slithered towards us, students scrambling out of its way. It came to rest beside Ginevra, eyes closed and waiting for instructions. Go sleep twice, Ginevra said. Only need look terrifying. I would like to reiterate the horror that was Ginevra Weasley attempting to speak Parseltongue. The basilisk silently accepted this butchery of the language, returning to an empty corner where it curled into a ball. Ron had the look of a man whose entire world had been destroyed, and even Hermione appeared a bit faint. I responded in the only way I knew how. Ha! I told you I wasn't the heir. What a fool I had been. I'd let my guard down in enemy territory, and now here I was, cornered. I eased my hand towards my pocket, hoping I could reach my wand before she did any irreparable damage. But no, my plan had been foreseen, and my arm grabbed. I just wanted to thank you for giving me a second chance, Ginevra said. You know, back in my first year. I frowned, unsure of how she'd come to this conclusion. Ginevra Weasley was being possessed by my younger self while opening the Chamber of Secrets. At least, I think she was. You remember being the heir? Her lips flitted upwards, and she murmured, bits and pieces. The bathroom, The chamber, speaking parcel tongue. You. She squeezed my arm a little tighter, and her voice softened to a whisper. I've reformed. I really have, but sometimes I still think about killing Muggle-borns. That's perfectly natural, I assured her. Ginevra giggled. That's what Pansy says, too. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you for not sending me to Azkaban and using a height advantage against me. Ginevra leaned forward. Her breath fanned my lips. Tell you that, I jerked away. You're very welcome. However, I need to go kill Voldemort. Goodbye. Grabbing Hermione, I fled towards the girls' loo. We should have gotten Ron, Hermione muttered as we hurried through the hallways. I shook my head. There wasn't time. Hermione raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mentally shoved away images of Ginevra, though they would no doubt haunt my nightmares for years to come. We need to get the diadem of Ravenclaw, so we couldn't wait 30 seconds to call over Ron. Exactly. This is a quick, easy mission, and getting Ron would take more time than bringing him would save. Besides, someone has to watch the trunk, and frankly, it's hard enough fitting you under the cloak. I pulled at the starry fabric surrounding us. If Hermione didn't hunch forward, the passing Death Eaters could see our shoes. We reached the 3rd floor, and I began pacing. Hermione asked, "The diadem is in the room of requirement." I turned on my heel, heading back up the hallway. Technically, everything that's in Hogwarts is in the room if you wish for it hard enough. Hermione rolled her eyes. Didn't you lock that? I did, I said, but I can get in. I finished pacing and an impressive oak door shimmered into existence. A silvery lock sat in its center. I sauntered up to it. All I need is faith in myself, which I have in abundance, and to have learned lessons from the trials. Thankfully, I set up the trials, so I already know everything. Of course you do, Hermione muttered from close behind me. I turned the knob and click. I turned the knob again and again. Didn't open. All right, new plan, I said. We need to convert Malfoy. We what? He's already done half the trials. With our help, he could be through the door in hours. I suppose it would be too much to ask for you to charm him with your feminine wiles, she groaned. Harry, that's no. I leaned against the wall, the stone's chill dulled by my cloak. Right, the breakup's still too fresh. That's fine. Draco is rebellious enough without your influence. When has Malfoy ever rebelled? Hermione said. He practically worships his father. And yet his hair tells another story, I said. Hermione blinked, her mind slowly churning over my amazing deduction. I'm sorry. Lucius Malfoy is very proud of his long, luxurious hair. He even cloned himself just to ensure its continued existence. Yet what has Draco done? Cut it and hardened it with harsh gels. If Draco was truly so devoted to his father, why would he spit upon his very reason for existence? Hermione buried her face in her hands. I think I liked this plan better before you explained it. I grinned and took off towards the dungeons. Let's go find Malfoy.